deep-sea monsters that should have never existed, to bizarre glowing organisms crawling along our ocean floors, and not to mention a terrifying ancient species of sharks with snapping jaws. The siphonophore is a crazy piece of work to which some of them can grow the length of a blue whale. They take the cake for the largest creature on Earth and can reach up to 150 feet in length. With a total of 175 species of this kind, they are scattered through all the Earth's oceans. But that doesn't mean you'll find any species in any part. Some are found in the waters of Portugal, nicknamed the man o' war for how venomous it is. Despite this alien-looking thing looking like a singular animal, it's actually a colony of individual organisms called zooids. Each zooid has their own specific function for survival, but are genetically identical to each other. Some will focus on feeding and digesting, while others focus on movement, swimming, or reproducing. Since zooids cannot survive on their own as a singular, they band together and depend on each other's help as they form a body. How this works is that a first singular zooid is hatched from a fertilized egg, and then once it develops its growth hormones, it then begins to create more zooids with itself. Nasty, wicked cool. These three submarine divers got a lovely surprise from a visit of a deep-sea female shark. This video is more phenomenal than scary, as it starts out with the shark rolling around on the ocean floor, causing an immense amount of debris to fly around the submarine. When she emerges from this though, they get an amazing shot of her going over with prey in her mouth, really showcasing how large this girl is. Everyone in the submarine is just in awe, rightfully so. She then starts to take a huge interest in the machine, coming up closer again as she observes the submarine, checking out some of the gadgets it has, even trying to nibble at some of them. My favorite shot from this video, however, is when they get a clear image of her eye. How many of you can say you've made eye contact with a shark? It even rolls to the back of her head as she swims away. This lovely lady is known as the blunt-nosed six-gill shark, or the cow shark if you want to be mean about it. They are, sadly, listed as near threatened by the International Union for Conservation of Nature, because they are often exploited as a sport fish due to their popularity. The vampire squid. No, sorry, it doesn't drink the blood of its prey, but rather it was given the name because of its lovely dark red or jet black color. You can find these little guys anywhere in the tropical oceans and temperate waters, if you're willing to travel down 2,000 or 3,000 feet below. Despite only being able to grow up to 12 inches in length, these guys can projectile themselves the length of 2 bodies per second by spraying a jet of water through their mantle. They were first discovered by Carl Chun in 1903, who had an ambition to prove there was sea life past 550 meters below. If only he were here today. They have 8 arms that are connected by webbing, and are able to regenerate if they get into a bit of a scuffle with other sea life. Half of these 8 arms are covered in suckers, and also have small hairs on these legs as well to help detect their prey. It has to wait for food to come out, since it sadly doesn't have feeding tentacles like other cephalopods, but thankfully only needs to eat twice a week. Their eyes are also considered to be the largest in comparison to their body size of any animal in the world. Sometimes marine life doesn't really care and will in fact attack your equipment. An extremely rare bioluminescence deep sea squid, known as the Dane octopus squid, was caught going in for a researcher's camera thinking it was food. The footage was caught with only being below by 1 kilometer down, and all that the crew was really aiming for was to observe the biodiversity of the sea floor. This squid is one of the largest known deep sea squids, with this specific one being 75 centimeters long, just under a meter, but can grow up to 7 feet in length. One of the scientists stated, descended on our camera assuming it was prey and tried to startle it with its huge bioluminescence headlights. It then proceeded to wrap its arms around one of our other cameras, which in turn captured the encounter in even greater detail. I think we were very lucky to have witnessed this. This squid is not only popular for its size, but rather the photophores it produces, making it the largest light source known to be in the sea as of right now. Truly beautiful, yet terrifying at the same time. This video was taken in the Gulf of Mexico with an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle that most underwater explorers used when they're exploring the deep blue sea. It's a little grainy, but we can still make out some sort of jellyfish-like creature making a very creepy appearance. I'm not sure what the researchers were doing in this video with the box, but as they pull away, some crazy-looking tentacle creature makes its way over to it in a rather aggressive manner. If it is a jellyfish, it's definitely not one I've ever seen before. Its body is circular from one angle, but as it rotates, we see that it's actually completely flat rather than spherical. Going through the comments, people seem to agree that it's what's known as a clinging jellyfish, and are usually found in the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. We don't have to worry about seeing them at beaches though, since they prefer a more calm and solitude environment. The internet is going crazy trying to decipher what type of jellyfish this is. Majority are saying that this is a comb jellyfish, but its odd shape at the beginning, looking very alien-like, has people fighting one another in the comments section. But as I further read into comb jellyfish, they might just be correct. Some are known to have round bellies and even tentacles like the one in this video has, but also makes them a part of a different family than the average jellyfish. They get their names because they use these things called cilia, which are little hair extensions on their body that help them swim, and also give the appearance of a brush and comb. It's really hard to see it in the one on this video, especially with its deep black color, but we do get a moment of the comb jelly lighting up in a rainbow effect, which the cilias, along with its body, are producing. They do this when they are obviously threatened. I mean, I would too if I had a giant submarine camera in my face. In the end of this video, people also argued if it was accidentally torn to shreds or it produced its own ink. I believe the latter because this species of jellyfish can ink as well. A weird crossbreed of jellyfish and squid. These freaky little guys are found all over the world, ranging from the tropics all the way to the poles, but surprisingly not in fresh water. The deep sea lizardfish, one of the world's deepest living apex predators. These guys are ruthless because not only will they just eat about anything, they won't hesitate to nibble on someone they know. They are also hermaphrodites, having both male and female parts, to which scientists are speculating that it's because of their low population. However, when they do breed, they seem to have a maximum cap at how many they will produce, keeping just enough to have the species thrive, but not over the top to where finding food becomes an issue. Interesting. There really isn't that much known about these fish, as they just typically like to hang around on the ocean floors, going as far deep as 3,500 meters. They will literally just sit on the ocean floor as they wait for their prey to come by, trapping them with multiple rows of extremely sharp and long needle-like teeth. Maybe it's because this video was taken in 1998, but the eerie blue lighting does not help its case, making it all the more terrifying as its glowing eyes glare right back at you. The Goblin Shark, also nicknamed the most unhinged, ugliest creature to ever exist. Sorry, that was personal. These crazy looking things are found in the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans, but the most common sightings are off the coast of Japan. One cool thing about them is that they are living fossils from over 100 million years ago. They come from the family Mitsukurinidae and are the only living representative that comes from that ancient lineage. They also have some pink coloring on them due to their translucent skin, making their blood the reason why they give off such a pretty color. And much like humans and our eyes, they grow into their noses, so they are born with quite the big honker until they reach adulthood. The reason why they're on this list though is because of how they eat. When they come up to their prey, their jaw literally unhinges and launches forward, its skin stretching as it reaches out to eat its meal. Thankfully though, these are found deep below the surface, as deep as 4,300 feet, one even being recorded at exactly 4,490 feet below. The adults usually like to hang far below more than the younger generation.
Early in 2024, an amazing deep-sea expedition uncovered possibly over 100 new species off the coast of Chile. Between January 8th and February 11th, researchers aboard the Schmidt Ocean Institute's research vessel Falkor 2 explored the sea floor. The expedition, called Seamounts of the Southeast Pacific, focused on underwater mountains, or seamounts, in three main areas. The Nazca and Salas y Gomez ridges, which stretch 1,800 miles from Chile to eastern Eastern Island, and the Juan Fernandez and Nazca Desventuradas marine parks. During the expedition, the team mapped the ocean floor and discovered 4 previously unknown seamounts. The largest was 11,581 feet, or 3,530 meters above the seafloor, and just to put that into perspective, that's more than 4 times the height of the Burj Khalifa, the world's tallest building. And as I said before, they also discovered more than 100 previously undiscovered species. There were all sorts of corals, sponges, sea urchins, mollusks, and crustaceans. Lead scientist Javier Salinas, a marine biologist, said, "We far exceeded our hopes on this expedition. The amount we found, especially for some groups like sponges, is mind-blowing." What you're looking at here is a comb jelly. As alien as it looks though, it may actually be able to give us some insight into the human brain. A recent study funded by the US National Science Foundation has uncovered how ocean creatures, specifically comb jellies, have adapted to survive in radically different environments, i.e. shallow waters versus the extreme depths of the ocean. The research revealed that deep sea and shallow water comb jellies have different types of lipid molecules in their cell membranes. These lipids help the creature's cells stay stable in their environments. For deep sea comb jellies, the high pressure of the ocean floor keeps their cell membranes intact, but if brought to the surface, the lack of pressure causes their membranes to break down and the jellyfish basically turn into goo. On the flip side, shallow water comb jellies have membranes that are too rigid to function properly under the extreme pressures of the deep sea. So what does this mean for us? Well, the deep sea comb jellies membranes are made up of plasmalogens, a type of lipid which is also found in the human brain. In humans, a loss of plasmalogens has been linked to diseases like Alzheimer's. So the researchers are hoping that with more research, they'll be able to better understand these lipids' role in our brains, and by extension, how diseases of the brain develop. Deep sea mining was really called into question this past summer. Researchers found that oxygen is being produced deep in the ocean from small metallic nodules on the sea floor. This is a pretty amazing find because before we thought that oxygen was only produced through photosynthesis, which relies on sunlight, of course. Professor Andrew Sweetman, who led the study, said for aerobic life to begin on the planet there had to be oxygen. But we now know that there is oxygen produced in the deep sea, where there is no light. The discovery came while the team was studying the potential effects of deep sea mining in the Clarion-Clipperton zone between Hawaii and Mexico. The nodules they sampled had an electric charge high enough to split seawater into hydrogen and oxygen, which Sweetman described as, quote, effectively batteries in a rock. So obviously this finding makes deep sea mining more controversial than it already is. On one hand, some think mining the ocean floor is really important for gathering minerals that are needed for a transition into more green energy, but a lot of oceanographers are worried that we just don't fully understand the impact this could have on deep sea ecosystems, and that's becoming even more apparent with this recent find. Also in 2024, 6 new species of carnivorous sea sponges were discovered. Marine biologists using an ROV, remotely operated vehicle, found the 6 new species off the coast of Western Australia. The sponges belong to the Cladio something family. Just put it up on screen, Vincent. I can't pronounce it. The sponges belong to this family here that I'm not going to bother trying to pronounce, and this discovery puts the total number of this family in Australia at 41. I cannot pronounce the names of these things individually either, but we can show you some of them. There's this one, then you got this one here, and you can't forget about this guy. They were found in 2 deep sea locations, the Bremer Canyon system, where one of the new species was discovered, and Cape Range Canyon, where the other 5 were found. Dr. Jim Thompson, CEO of Queensland Museum, said, "These new-to-science species enhance our knowledge of this family and highlight the importance of ongoing exploration and conservation of marine biodiversity." Now, what used to happen is scientists would collect carnivorous sponges by trawling the ocean floor, but because of advancements in ROV technology, now they can just look at these creatures in their natural habitats, all from the comfort of their office desks, which is pretty incredible. In March of 2024, a 45-day deep-sea expedition to the Clarion-Clipperton Zone between Mexico and Hawaii uncovered some very bizarre but fascinating creatures too. Thomas Dahlgren, a marine ecologist from the University of Gothenburg, was part of the team aboard the British research vessel and stated, quote, "These areas are the Earth's least explored. It's estimated that only 1 out of 10 animal species living down here has been described by science." The team explored the abyssal plains, deep sea regions at depths of 3,500 to 5,500 meters. Despite covering more than half of the Earth's surface, we really don't know much about the life down there. Dahlgren described the excitement of discovering new species like it was the 18th century all over again. The animals in these extreme depths survive on very little food, mostly organic debris called marine snow falling from the surface, so the population is mostly made up of filter feeders like sponges and sediment feeders like sea cucumbers. The team used an ROV to capture footage and collect samples. Some of their coolest discoveries were bowl-shaped sponges and a pink sea cucumber known as a sea pig. Dahlgren went on to say these sea cucumbers were some of the largest animals found on this expedition. They act as ocean floor vacuum cleaners. The team also photographed a cup-shaped glass sponge thought to live up to 15,000 years. What you're looking at here is an object used to sample water deep in the ocean. It's called a Conductivity Temperature and Depth Rosette, or CTD. It was recently used to study the ocean's twilight zone, a deep, dark region 200 to 1,000 meters below the surface. Scientists found that this area is not only low in light, but also iron deficient, a condition that affects the growth of bacteria. So to survive, these bacteria produce special molecules called siderophores, which help them gather tiny amounts of iron from the surrounding water. The study focused on the Pacific Ocean, setting out to see how these bacteria adjust to the harsh environment. Tim Conway, an associate professor of chemical oceanography, explained, "Understanding the organisms that facilitate carbon uptake in the ocean is important for understanding the impacts of climate change. When organic matter from the surface ocean descends to the deep ocean, it acts as a biological pump that removes carbon from the atmosphere and stores it in seawater and sediments." The researchers collected water samples during an expedition from Alaska to Tahiti and were surprised by their findings. Not only did they discover high levels of siderophores in surface waters, but they also found them in the twilight zone, an area where iron was expected to have very little impact on the growth of bacteria. Conway went on to say, "Unlike in surface waters, we did not expect to find siderophores in the ocean's twilight zone. This discovery is helping them understand the ocean's role in carbon storage." This year, scientists discovered all these ecosystems in the volcanic caves under hydrothermal vents on the seafloor. During a 30-day expedition aboard the Schmidt Ocean Institute's research vessel Falkor 2, the team explored an undersea volcano along the East Pacific Rise where two tectonic plates meet. The area is known for its hydrothermal vents, which are underwater openings where seawater and hot magma combine to create these natural hot springs. Around these vents, sea life like tube worms, mussels, and bacteria live in the extreme conditions. But what the researchers didn't expect to find were large communities living in caves below these vents. Using the remotely operated vehicle Sebastian, they discovered caves filled with giant tube worms, some reaching up to over 1.5 feet long, along with snails and other animals. Dr. Sabine Kallner, a marine biologist involved in the study, called it, quote, "mind-blowing to see animals living beneath the vents." And for years, scientists have studied vent ecosystems, but life below them was mostly a mystery. This year, scientists continued researching the possibility of a hidden ocean deep beneath our feet, and they may have gotten closer than ever to the truth. About 400 miles below the Earth's surface, there is a massive reservoir of water trapped in a rock called ringwoodite. While scientists knew that water could be stored inside the mantle rocks, they never imagined it could exist in such a mysterious form. Instead of being a solid liquid or gas, the water is held in a sponge-like structure in the rock. Geophysicist Steve Jacobson, who is part of the research team, explained, "The ringwoodite is like a sponge soaking up water. There's something very special about the crystal structure of ringwoodite that allows it to attract hydrogen and trap water." The study, titled "Dehydration Melting at the Top of the Lower Mantle," showed that this water could make up a big amount of the Earth's total water supply. Scientists found the hidden water by studying seismic waves from earthquakes, which revealed that the waves were interacting with the water trapped in ringwoodite. And here's something really nuts. If this rock contains just 1% water, it would mean the Earth has 3 times as much water deep below the surface as all the oceans combined. Well, this is exciting. This news just came out the other day. In the waters off the Solomon Islands, there is a sea creature so massive it could be seen from space. In fact, it's one of the largest living organisms on Earth, a colossal coral colony. Discovered by a team of researchers and filmmakers, this coral is roughly the size of 2 basketball courts. Unlike most coral reefs, which are made up of different colonies, this one is an individual organism made up of millions of tiny animals called polyps. The species is Pavona clavus, and its size and slow growth suggests it's been around for centuries. Underwater photographer Manu Sanfelix, who first saw it last month, was in awe, saying, quote, "It's a dream to see something unique like this. When Napoleon was alive, this thing was here," end quote. Before this discovery, the largest known coral was in American Samoa, measuring about 22 meters wide, but as marine conservation expert Stacy Jupiter points out, humans have only surveyed about 5% of the planet's marine realm. That means there could still be larger corals hidden out in uncharted waters. What you're looking at here is a newly discovered creature. Again, news about this one just came out the other day. In the Monterey Canyon off California, marine biologist Bruce Robison made a discovery back in 2000. While exploring with robotic vehicles, he came across a strange gelatinous blob with a giant hood, finger-like projections, and colorful internal organs. Fast forward nearly 25 years, and Robison, along with colleague Stephen Haddock, which is a great name for someone who studies fish, they have finally solved the mystery. They've identified this bizarre creature as a brand new type of nudibranch, or sea slug. Now, unlike other sea slugs that crawl along the ocean floor though, this one floats. Looks a lot more like a jellyfish. Even more astonishing, this new nudibranch can jet backward by expelling water from its hood. The hood, as it turns out, is like a Venus flytrap, capable of expanding and contracting to trap its prey. The creature is also bioluminescent and has both male and female reproductive organs. A pretty fascinating little creature. These are recently discovered octopus species. Roughly 2 miles beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean near Costa Rica, scientists found 4 brand new species of octopus during expeditions in June and December of last year. It all started when researchers spotted pink octopus hatchlings coming out from their eggs at a place known as El Dorado Hill. Jorge Cortez Nunez, a researcher from the University of Costa Rica, said it was unexpected to find so many species of octopus in a small area, first, and second, at 3,000 meters depth. In June, researchers using a remotely operated vehicle named Sebastian found 2 octopus nurseries around hydrothermal springs on the sea floor. They discovered that these octopuses seemed to prefer the warm waters from the vents, which helps shorten their long incubation period. The warm water gives the eggs a better chance of surviving in the cold, dark depths. One of the new species was even given an unofficial nickname, the Dorado octopus, after the spot where it was found. The species has short arms and small eyes, similar to the pearl octopus found off California. The other species had bigger eyes and longer arms. The 4th species is especially mysterious, with bumpy pale skin and a strange row of suckers on each arm. In total, about 310 deep-sea octopus specimens were collected. What you're looking at here is a recently discovered species of fish in China. You'll notice that it doesn't have eyes. They kind of look like raw chicken cutlets or something else that I can't really describe on here. And those dark patches that you see, those are its internal organs. Deep in an underground river in southern China, scientists found these blind pink fish with no eyes. They were swimming in the dark depths of a cave system in Guangxi when researchers first encountered them during surveys between 2019 and 2024. They were on the hunt for Chinese karst loaches, but quickly realized that this fish didn't match any known species. After studying it, the team confirmed that they had discovered a new species. This is the overly complicated scientific name on screen now, so I'll use the nickname Dachshund Chinese karst loach. These tiny fish are only about an inch long and have elongated bodies with no scales. They also have wide heads, narrow mouths, and whisker-like thingies on their heads, but again, no eyes. Researchers believe this species, like others in the area, lives in deep caves with underground rivers and is rarely seen by people. In November of last year, anglers off the coast of Pakistan reeled in a strange catch, a quote, torpedo-shaped predator with teeth on its tongue. At first they thought it was a regular fish, but researchers Sherkan Panwara and Imtiaz Kashani soon realized they'd actually found something new. And after examining these fish in the lab, they discovered not one, but two new species. The first was Rachicentron blotchi, or the blotchy cobia. These predators are about 3 feet long, weigh around 8 pounds, and have small eyes, pointed snouts, and tiny teeth on their jaws, the roof of their mouths, and yes, even their tongues. Inside their stomachs, they found a mix of small fish, crustaceans, and cephalopods. Second species, Rachicentron marchiensis, or the macron cobia, is smaller, about 2.5 feet long, and weighs about 6 pounds. It has a short, pointed head, small teeth, and a greenish coloring with a gray band running along its side. Its stomach contained mostly digested material and some crab parts. How's this for an animal name? The night-armored catfish. Pretty cool, but does it live up to its name? Well, this is one right here. Divers in northern Brazil were exploring the Xingju River, hoping to find some Asacu preto, a thorny black fish often sold in the aquarium trade. Well, it turns out these fish hadn't been documented by science yet. After teaming up with local fishermen and digging through museum collections, scientists realized that this was a brand new species which they named Pseudacanthicus nictos, or the night-armored catfish. These fish can grow up to 10 inches long and have completely black eyes, forked teeth, and their bodies are covered in armor-like plates and thorny spikes. Living in the murky depths of the river, they're usually found around submerged logs, sometimes as deep as 65 feet. As you could probably tell, they're carnivores, feeding on small aquatic animals. They're also very territorial. The males can get very aggressive, especially when sharing space with other males. Off the coast of Belize, anglers unknowingly caught a new species of shark between 2016 and 2019. First they thought they'd just landed another hammerhead, but something about the shark's unique shovel-shaped heads made scientists take a closer look. And after analyzing the shark's body shape, skeleton, and DNA, researchers realized these were part of a completely new species, the shovelbill shark. These small sharks, measuring up to 3 feet 4 inches long, have these very unique, flat, shovel-looking heads. They're found in coastal waters, estuaries, coral reefs, and seagrass beds from Belize all the way to Brazil. They're often caught by anglers, and experts warn that they may already be highly threatened. As co-author of the study, Damian Chapman said, "It is tragic that we have only just recognized that this species exists, and we are already running against the clock to prevent its extinction." Yeah, that is very sad, especially because these sharks are kind of cute, you know? Off the coast of Saudi Arabia, researchers exploring coral reefs discovered this tiny, really upset-looking fish, and honestly, I think if I looked like this, I would also be in a pretty bad mood all the time. While diving in the Red Sea, they released clove oil into an underwater cave to sedate the fish inside, and a small dark red goby floated to the surface. At first, they weren't sure what species it was, and after several sightings and a few more catches, they figured out why. This was not a species they'd ever seen before. This little fish, only about ½ an inch long, had a severely curved mouth that gave it this sort of grumpy look. Researchers named it the grumpy dwarf goby because of this permanently unhappy looking facial expression. The fish is incredibly rare, with only 10 specimens found during extensive collections along the Saudi Arabian coast, said the researchers. They live in small caves, rocky overhangs, or crevices about 32 to 100 feet below the surface. Again, in the caves of southern China, researchers discovered a fish which they'd named Liu's cave loach, a new species swimming through heavily polluted water. The creatures caught the attention of scientists visiting the area in 2023. Spelled out for you here is their scientific name, but again, they're also called Liu's cave loach for short. They can grow up to 2.5 inches long. They have elongated bodies covered in tiny scales with bright yellow fins. Their snouts are lined with whiskers, almost like catfish, and their eyes have a yellowish hue. They live in underground rivers and cave pools, but don't show the usual traits of cave-dwelling species. They were also found breeding in a cave pond, despite the water being heavily polluted from nearby sugar factories and duck farms. So far, Liu's cave loaches have only been found in the caves of Yifeng District, Guangxi, a province in southern China near the Vietnam border. Deep beneath the surface of the ocean, researchers have discovered 3 brand new species of sea stars living in some of the most remote and bizarre environments on Earth. The sea stars were found thousands of feet below the surface at methane seeps in underwater valleys using remote-controlled vehicles during surveys between 2003 and 2018. One of the new species showing up on screen in text right now because I don't have a week to learn how to pronounce that. Anyway, it was discovered off the coast of Costa Rica about 3,200 feet down. With flower-like patterns of small plates on its back, these creatures move along the seafloor using tube feet that extend down each arm. Another species, Monostella davidalani, also found in Costa Rica, looks similar but has thorny, elongated spines along the edge of its body. The third species, Cayman Ostella lorisae, has short spines covered in thick skin, and interestingly, all mature specimens looked identical. These deep sea stars seem to live around stuff that sinks to the bottom of the ocean, like sunken wood, which gives them shelter and food. And researchers still aren't sure if the sea stars eat only the wood or if they have other food sources down there. Here's something you gotta think about when exploring the deep sea: earthquakes and tsunamis. Getting caught up in a natural disaster while deep underwater is incredibly dangerous. Astronauts have a lot to worry about, but earthquakes aren't one of them. You don't gotta worry about the Earth's crust shifting when you're not on Earth. Seismic activity beneath the ocean doesn't just trigger destruction on land, it also triggers massive waves, which can of course cause serious problems out at sea. First, you've got underwater earthquakes, giant shudders that happen deep beneath the ocean's surface when tectonic plates shift and grind against each other. We're talking about seismic waves that can shake the ocean floor like a rag doll. So, if you're diving or exploring the deep sea when one of these earthquakes hits, not good. You'd be tossed around with no control over where you're going or what's gonna happen next. And these underwater earthquakes can trigger tsunamis, massive walls of water traveling at high speed, swallowing up everything in their path. Ships, submarines, entire cities along coastlines. Tsunamis are a nightmare scenario for researchers out at sea. Imagine a tsunami barreling towards you from miles away, and by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late. You're caught in this storm of swirling water and debris with no way out, and even if you manage to escape the immediate danger, the aftermath of an underwater earthquake can be just as deadly. The seabed can shift and change in an instant, creating underwater landslides and whirlpools. Now let's talk more about landslides though. These can also be brought on by methane hydrate deposits. Methane hydrate deposits are basically chunks of ice that trap methane gas inside of them. These deposits are stable under high pressure and low temperatures, but when these conditions change, like if the ocean, say, is warming up or if the pressure drops, the methane hydrates can break down and release the methane gas. There are tons of these deposits sitting under the seabed, just waiting to be disturbed, and if that happens, the methane gas shoots up to the surface like a rocket, creating massive bubbles that can swallow up ships and cause explosions. And as I mentioned, there's the landslide part. Methane hydrate deposits can help stabilize the sea floor, so when they break down, it can lead to underwater landslides. These landslides can be massive, a bit like like underwater avalanches. Another one of the many dangers of the sea, rogue waves, aka freak waves, killer waves, or monster waves, and they live up to their name. These are massive waves that can appear without warning, so pretty big threats to ships. You could be cruising along and enjoying the salty breeze when out of nowhere a massive wall of water, taller than a 10-story building, comes crashing down on you. They can appear seemingly out of nowhere in the middle of calm seas, and I wasn't exaggerating before. They can be huge. We're talking over 100 feet tall sometimes, which is insane. That's like a skyscraper just suddenly rising up from the ocean. What makes them so scary though is that unpredictability. They don't follow the usual patterns of waves, so sailors can't really prepare for them, at least not entirely. In one moment, you could be sailing smooth, and the next, you're facing towering walls of water that could easily capsize even large ships. And scientists still don't fully understand what causes rogue waves. One of the most dangerous sections of Earth's waters is the Sargasso Sea. The Sargasso Sea is like this floating jungle in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, but instead of trees, it's made of a unique type of seaweed called sargassum. This seaweed forms thick mats that can stretch for miles, and it creates this tangled maze. It's a bit eerie. It's kind of like a big floating desert. There's not much else around it except for the seaweed, and that sounds kind of peaceful, but for sailors, it's a different story. Navigating through all that sargassum is actually proven to be pretty dangerous. The Sargasso Sea has a very dark reputation. It's kinda known for swallowing up ships, and over the centuries there have been all these tales of sailors getting trapped in the area, the ships unable to move as they're slowly engulfed by the seaweed. Sounds awful. Underwater caves. Lots of divers have died exploring them. They're labyrinths beneath the surface of the ocean, and sure, they're exciting places to explore. They can be beautiful, but they're also packed with dangers. First off, navigating through an underwater cave is like trying to find your way through a pitch black maze. There are tunnels and chambers crisscrossing in all directions, and if you're not careful, it's easy to get lost. Imagine swimming deeper and deeper into the darkness with no idea which way is up or down. Then you have the risk of getting trapped. Some caves have narrow passages that can squeeze you in, and if you're not careful, you could find yourself wedged with no way out. Another danger of the deep sea are blue holes. These are basically underwater sinkholes, and they can be deceivingly beautiful because they're also incredibly dangerous. Giant gaping chasms in the ocean floor plunging down into the depths. You can see them from the sky. They're often darker blue in color, contrasting with the surrounding water, and they're dark because of how deep they are, for one, and sunlight can't reach the bottom. These holes vary in size and depth. Some extend several hundred feet below the ocean surface. The scariest thing about blue holes is that a lot of them are uncharted territory. Unlike on land, where we have maps and signs to help guide us, most blue holes are unexplored. You never know what you might encounter down there. Who knows what could be living in these areas, for one, but aside from that, there could be dangerous currents, and things do live in some of these blue holes. The Great Blue Hole off the coast of Belize, for example, has been explored, and there are tons of different shark species living down there. So these aren't places you can just go for a casual dive. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, there are these eerie chimneys called black smokers. These are hydrothermal vents on the ocean floor that emit superheated water, which is rich in minerals. But the extreme temperatures and the toxic chemicals can make these areas incredibly dangerous. They're a bit like underwater volcanoes, but instead of spewing lava, they belch out super hot water loaded with minerals. They're found near the edges of tectonic plates, where the Earth's crust is pulling apart, and when cold seawater seeps down into the cracks and meets hot magma below, it gets heated up and then shoots back out of the seafloor in these towering columns of scalding water. The water coming out can be hotter than boiling. We're talking temperatures that would cook you alive. And if that's not scary enough, they're also chock full of toxic chemicals like hydrogen sulfide, which can knock you out cold with just one whiff. Not that you'd really be swimming around down there anyway, to be fair, but still. So the conditions in these areas are pretty extreme, but there is actually life that can survive around black smokers, like tube worms, shrimp. There's a whole ecosystem down there that's adapted to thrive in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth, which is pretty cool. Drowning is said to be one of the worst ways to go, and one easy way to drown, just get caught in a giant swirling vortex of water, a whirlpool. These are kind of like the black holes of the ocean, less mysterious of course, but incredibly deadly, and unlike black holes, which are way too far away from us to cause any harm, even for astronauts, whirlpools are everywhere. One of the most infamous whirlpools is called the Monsterous off the coast of Norway. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Probably not. Its currents are strong enough though to suck down ships which can be torn apart like paper. Whirlpools can be massive, stretching for miles across, so if you happen to stumble on one while sailing or swimming, eesh. That's all I'm gonna say is just eesh. And whirlpools can be unpredictable. They can form out of nowhere with no warning signs to let you know they're coming. So even if you're the most experienced sailor or swimmer, at the end of the day, we're all still at the mercy of Mother Nature. For all the terrifying creatures that are known to exist, there are also the mysterious ones, creatures that science hasn't documented, but people have claimed to see, and as intriguing as that is, it's just another one of the many reasons the deep sea is such a dangerous place. There are tons of creatures we could talk about. Let's take a creature that doesn't get talked about a whole lot though, a creature that's been dubbed the Moa Moa. The first documented sighting of the Moa Moa was on June 8th of 1890 on Great Sandy Island in Western Australia by a school teacher named Selina Lovell and a small group of her students. The creature was reported to be this huge monster turtle fish thing measuring about 30 feet in length. The creature was described as having a domed shaped body, almost like a turtle shell, about 8 feet across by 5 feet high, with an elongated neck and a 12-foot long tail. The creature's rounded jaws measured what looked to be about 18 inches. The head and tail almost looked like they belonged to two different animals. Lovell didn't get a good glimpse of the creature's feet, but locals have described the Moa Moa having almost alligator-like feet. Lovell watched the creature for half an hour from only about 5 feet away. Afterward, the Moa Moa turned towards the sea, lifting its body and tail above the water, tossing fish into the air, and then swam back down into the deeper water. And finally, I just gotta mention ghosts. Now, I know that sounds a bit silly. Most astronauts and scientists aren't really all that concerned about ghosts, but I mean, just think of all the ships that have sank or gone missing entirely, all the planes that have gone down and sank to the bottom of the water never to be seen again, all the battles that have taken place out at sea. Unlike the black void of space surrounding us here on Earth, our planet's waters are full of life, but also full of death. There are so many immediate dangers, so much unexplored territory. It's no wonder there are so many tales of ghost ships sailing aimlessly across the sea, or tortured spirits rising from the water to drag unsuspecting sailors into the depths. There could be tons of life out there in space and plenty of dangers we can't even fathom. But until we're able to venture out far enough, it seems like taking a trip to the moon may be a safer one than venturing down into the deepest, darkest depths of our very own planet.
Starting us off today, we have, of course, aliens. Now before you click away, let me explain. Our world was formed over the course of billions of years, during which time countless comets and asteroids continuously collided with our planet. Scientists at NASA believe that it is these comets that brought water to planet Earth and filled our oceans. Why do they think this? Well, because of chemical markers found in our oceans. The isotopic levels of our ocean water are incredibly similar to some of the oldest meteorites in the solar system, which would be virtually impossible unless it was ancient meteorites who delivered the water to our planet in the first place. Here's the thing though, when the asteroids crashed on Earth and subsequently created our oceans, the water inside would have been accompanied by organic materials. You see where I'm going with this. Organic materials that have been evolving for the past 3.8 billion years. While it is quite possible that humans are a result of this biological material material, it's also possible that we're not the only result. And considering only 5% of our oceans have been explored, I'd say it's pretty possible and maybe even probable that some kind of other unfathomable creature lurks below the depths of the deep seas. Not only that, but each time a new asteroid hits our oceans, I feel like it brings forward a whole new possibility of evolutionary life.
What's the scariest, most mind-boggling thing in space? Well, to my knowledge, it would have to be black holes. Now, luckily, all of them are way too far away to pose any real threat to us here on Earth, or even for astronauts out in space for that matter, but the deep sea has its own kind of version of black holes. Eddies, and they are not too far away to pose significant threats. Eddies are basically circular currents, sort of like a whirlpool, that form within the larger ocean currents. Eddies can be small or big, and when I say big, I mean some of them can actually be seen from space, which is pretty scary. Now, there's not as much mystery surrounding eddies as there is with actual black holes, of course. It's pretty obvious where you'd end up if you were dragged into one of these things, but arguably it would be scarier as well because of the black hole. It's like, well, who knows really what's in there? Could be good. Probably not, but there's a possibility. With eddies, I mean, you just drown. Drowning is probably one of the worst ways to die. And that's the other horrifying thing about these massive sized ones. Nothing can escape, just like with a black hole. Anything caught up just gets sucked in. And if you're thinking you can just wait it out, maybe you can, but some of these whirlpools can last for hours, days, and in some cases, there have been ones that have been circulating for years.
So if we go back to the reason for water on Earth and take a moment to seriously consider the fact that the organic material brought to Earth by the same asteroids that brought us water have had 3.8 billion years to evolve, I'm gonna go ahead and say that it's pretty likely that it did. And it evolved into something NASA has kept us in the complete dark about. There have been rumors going around that during the 2022 Orpheus expedition, in which a NASA submersible traveled down into the uncharted depths of our oceans, they found something that they don't want us to know about. I mean, makes sense. It's not like this would be the first time that NASA has tried to keep something from the public. The submersible was deployed to explore the Hadal Zone, which is some 6,000 to 11,000 meters below sea level, and it includes the Mariana Trench. In fact, the Mariana Trench is just one of 30 subduction zones, or trench zones in simpler terms, that make up the Hadal. During NASA's 2022 mission, while exploring the depths under the guise of getting a better understanding of how to explore the moon's oceans, it is believed that they stumbled across something massive and never seen before. Underwater megafauna, massive animals, which was actually confirmed by an astronaut by the name of Garrett Reisman, who claims to have seen the eye of one of the creatures, and he described it as being as big as a flying saucer. Interesting analogy from a NASA astronaut.
Alright, expanding on Hannah's point a bit, some stories have been floating around about NASA coming across disturbing creatures deep in the ocean's depths. NASA has taken to exploring some of the deepest waters on Earth, the idea being that if they can learn more about the deep sea right here at home, they'll have a better understanding of what could be in deep sea environments on other planets. They also get a chance to test equipment in a similar environment to space. Now, NASA hasn't come out and said this on their own, but there have been some anonymous whistleblowers posting about experiences they've had on dives, with stories about running into dangerous creatures while on these deep sea explorations. Intelligent creatures resembling humanoid cephalopods who seem to intentionally sabotage equipment. Now, are these stories real, or are they just some internet fun? Well, about 80% of the ocean is unexplored, and seeing as it takes up about 70% of the planet overall, hey, I could see there being something down there other than dumb fish.
At our halfway point today, we have an underwater volcano threatening to split the Earth open. Light stuff, While generally underwater volcanoes provide hydrogen, sulfide, and other minerals to deep sea life, allowing thriving ecosystems to form at unforgivable depths, one volcano in particular, located just off of the coast of Tonga, seems to be kind of doing the opposite. On January 15th of 2022, big year, the volcano exploded with a force equal to 15 million tons of TNT. The eruption was among the most powerful ever recorded, and it sent water vapor 83 miles up into the stratosphere, causing temporary rises to temperatures in the surrounding area. Not only that, but the eruption reshaped the sea floor. The rim around the volcano had been replaced by a cavern that travels down 850 meters into the Earth's crust. Hopefully it doesn't get any deeper, because if it does, kind of like your ex, we're gonna have some serious issues.
There are some pretty intriguing stories about possible alien bases underwater as well. Take the Solomon Islands, for example. There have been stories for hundreds of years about strange objects hovering above the islands and then descending down into the waters below. Locals on these islands also have stories about terrifying creatures stalking the forests, coming out of intricate cave systems underground, and this is just one example. There are said to be alien bases deep under the Alaska ice. Strange UFO-type objects have been spotted maneuvering through waters across the globe. We have a whole video on it. Top 10 mysterious UFOs discovered underwater. Check it out. So perhaps NASA already knows about alien life that's taken up residency here on Earth. Maybe the deep sea is their domain. I ain't saying this is what I believe. By the way, I'm just throwing some ideas at you.
Next on our list, we have NASA's discovery of a city of lights found in the middle of the ocean, in an area with no land or electricity. In 2012, a map of the Earth at night was published by the Earth Observatory in collaboration with NASA and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Everything seemed relatively normal except for one area off the coast of Argentina. You guessed it, a city of lights was shown on the map in a shape that almost resembles an arrowhead, or maybe like the Eiffel Tower. Anyways, it was weird, especially considering the fact that in the area in which the lights are shown, like I said, there's no land. I am repeating myself a lot today. NASA claimed that the lights were a result of fishing boats in the area, but I think it's pretty obvious that NASA is not to be trusted, as they do seem to have a pretty extensive history of secret keeping going on. Plus, the only images ever released of the area were those taken by a satellite at night. I have a feeling something else is going on, but let me know what you think. Do you believe the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, who I have not one, not two, but 3 videos on exposing leaked information they wanted to keep secret? I don't.
So it's not just undiscovered intelligent life forms deep sea divers have to worry about. It's all the primitive creatures as well, some known and some less known. Sure, there are wild stories about humanoid cephalopods attacking researchers down below, or alien bases down there, but while those stories are fun, there is the actual very real possibility of running into something big that could pose a threat to the safety of the crew. Luckily, great whites don't really swim all that deep down, but there's other stuff going on down there. Giant squids are real, and who knows what else could be lurking down there. In the words of Qui-Gon Jinn, there's always a bigger fish. Wise words. You could have giant sea serpents, giant man-eating deep-sea piranhas that can see in the dark. Point is, space is dangerous, sure, but at least you don't have sentient life forms floating around the spacecraft on a constant basis.
And finally, we have the fact that in 2011, 87 World War II explosives made their way out of the ocean and on to Calshot Beach in England, surprising and terrifying locals and tourists alike. Although I'm not sure why you'd want a vacation on the beaches of England. Isn't the whole country's thing being really rainy? Anyways, the many explosive devices were managed by a 5-man bomb squad, which seems a little too relaxed if you ask me. 5 men, 87 bombs. Besides the point, an exclusion zone of 1,000 meters was set up around Calshot Beach to ensure the safety of civilians, while the devices were stacked 300 meters offshore during low tide. When high tide came, they were detonated. The bomb squad continued to comb the beach, the waters, the shores, and a little bit deeper, but luckily, I think no more were found. I think because if they weren't found and they're still there, that's pretty dangerous. If you think that's bad, allow me to remind you that to date, the United States alone has reported, keyword reported, 6 missing nuclear bombs that were lost to the ocean. NASA knows this, I mean it's public information, so obviously, but I'm betting they probably know the real number too. So I guess it makes sense that they are doing their best to avoid the ocean and to get the heck off this planet as a whole. I mean, if you're gonna die by radiation, might as well do it with a good view of the cosmos, right?
Finally though, what about all the mysterious threats in the deep sea? Things that we just can't quite explain. All the triangles referring to strange sections of water where odd stuff seems to happen all the time. The Bermuda Triangle is of course the most well known, but there are others like the Lake Michigan Triangle, for example. Not that NASA would be exploring Lake Michigan. Places where disappearances seem to happen. Planes will disappear while flying overhead. Ships seem to have accidents or just vanish altogether. Some blame it on treacherous weather. Others think there could be some kind of strange electromagnetic interference in these areas that messes with equipment. These are just theories, of course, but there are so many mysterious incidents in the Bermuda Triangle alone. The disappearance of Flight 19 in 1945, the disappearances of the USS Cyclops in 1918. In 1948, Flight DC-3 went missing, never to be seen again. The Witchcraft vessel in 1967. The list goes on and on. The ocean is vast, mysterious, and dangerous. Most of it is still unexplored, yes, and it's not hard to see why.